Meine sehr verehrten Damen und
Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the media, a warm welcome to our today's press conference with a preliminary interim result. Well, we are right in the middle of a conference. It is our 2-day event, and let me briefly point out that representatives on the panel speak several languages. So if you have not have a headset yet for the simultaneous interpretation, please go and get it on the right-hand side or left-hand side. I apologize for starting a bit late because we're in the middle of a conference.
For the initiators, Mrs. Kahane will make the initial statement, then the curator, one of the curators, Mrs. Viola Racheb, will give a survey of the program, and then we will have some impulse statements of several mayors from the different local communities and cities along the route of the refugees, the route that we are dealing with from Lebanon, Turkey, Greece, Italy, and Austria. We will hear the comments of the panelists. First of all, Mrs. Kahane has the floor. I should like to ask her to address a few words to the press conference. Thank you. I'm delighted to welcome you to this press conference here today. All who are present have cooperated very intensively, and for us, the initiators, several hours before the end of the conference, it is clear that this is only the first step. There are some concrete projects in the pipeline, and we are working practically on the question how we can remain in contact in order to maintain the communication and to assure the transfer of knowledge that started here, how we can assure this these contacts amongst the group members. What I personally take home, we all are connected to one another with these major tasks, and I know today that nobody is alone. We discussed and we explained best practices. We shared hopes and visions, and I should like to thank all participants very much for their openness. It is a great honor and still is a great honor for us that they are all present, and we thank you for your confidence. Take care and see you again really soon.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. I should like to ask Mrs. Raheb to make some introductory statements concerning the conference and to give a survey of at this conference, we managed something very important. This is the first international conference of mayors from the neighboring states, but also from the transit countries and the destination countries, the countries of refuge. And we are very grateful that all these mayors have participated. We have succeeded in networking, and I should like to give an example of this networking. The two mayors from Lebanon only got to know each other on the flight to Vienna. This is the sign of a beginning of networking at the international level, but also at the national and regional levels. But this network created friendships. The first steps towards an exchange of views were taken, and for us, this is the first step towards an empowerment process where we, of course, want to continue along the path with our mayors. And the past 2 days, we always have had a very positive energy. We perceived it. This energy carried us through these 2 days, but we also heard about hope and visions for individual countries and the global challenge. With all these challenges, we do not want to forget the voices of the refugees. And I should like to ask one of the quotations of our panel of yesterday morning, and I quote, "We know that you are tired here in Europe to admit us into your territories, but we are tired of the war," unquote. Some concrete options for action were emerged in the course of the conference, and the first one, it is necessary to change the perspective at 3 levels. First of all, a better coordination between the mayors and the NGOs, the GOs, and the international organizations and the civil society is necessary, both in planning but also in the implementation of solutions to concrete problems at the municipal and local level. The second point I would like to make, that work with refugees and the people receiving refugees should not only be understood as humanitarian help only, but we need to take further action. We must realize that this is a challenge to build a sustainable development process. So this will be a win-win situation both for refugees and the admitting countries. And the third point, we all are challenged. We have to face the challenge to support refugees and to see them as an opportunity. The people who are admitted into our territory, to understand these people as an enrichment and an opportunity for our societies. Permit me at the end to say something else, and I'm talking on behalf of many who are here. Maybe we are tired. This is maybe true. But in these 2 days, we jointly worked on solutions, and we have learned from one another. We have exchanged views, and we have gained a lot of strength. And I should like to thank all of those who are here in this building. On behalf of Now, we should like to thank them all. Thank you very much. The first mayor, who is Mr. Nassim Saleh, the mayor of Malé in Lebanon, I should like to ask him to make a statement. It's an impulse statement. Thank you very much. In the name of God, ladies and gentlemen, the world today goes through many crises. One of these crises is the Syrian refugee crisis. This refugee crisis results in the fact that there are many refugees who come from different countries, but the most important crisis is the Syrian crisis. The Syrian refugee crisis has not been solved by the international community of states. Therefore, it is necessary that all states of this world study this crisis, take a closer look at it. What is happening today is only a provisional solution or a calming of the situation, but we have to join forces and find comprehensive solutions, sustainable solutions, and solutions that have long-term effects. We need projects in the destination countries, and the economy in the countries of refuge must be strengthened and stimulated. We need projects not only in the host country, but projects that also serve the refugees. We need projects that will provide for more jobs, more integration, a higher degree of integration. The Syrian crisis is not only a crisis that concerns Syria, but also other countries, not only the neighboring countries, but all countries in the world. Of course, the neighboring countries bear the brunt of the crisis. I believe that the neighboring country have to tolerate much more than they can and have to shoulder a burden that is too heavy for them. In the year 2015, as I know, the international international support was announced by the United Nations. And this support was, however, reduced. Only 50% of the committed funds arrived in Lebanon. And with regard to development aid, this is very similar, and aid would have been given to Lebanon, and only 13% of the committed sums arrived. And this led to a situation where in our country, in Lebanon, and in the Lebanese society, we hear a lot of complaints. The Lebanese now see that the Syrian refugees are a burden for them, and this means that we need more support. We need more support for the host countries. We need projects. We need projects for refugees and for the resident population. It is also necessary that the organizations of civil society will cooperate with government authorities and with private initiatives and initiators in order to select and support the best projects, but also to find new solutions. For us, it is important to see that we can open our horizon, that we look beyond the box and outside of the box in order to be able to help the refugees and to find solutions to the Syrian crisis. Such a solution can only be a political one. So one day we hope it will be possible for the refugees to return to their home countries. It should also be possible for refugees to allow them to remain in the host countries if they want to stay there, and this should be possible without forcing the refugees to present reasons for wanting to stay or to having to describe terrible events. So the international community of states has to be expected to do that, and also international NGOs. And what I heard at this conference as well was it is necessary that within the EU, the European member states will build up a network, that they will communicate more closely, that this communication will also involve the transit and neighboring countries, and solutions will have to be found for all countries. It is necessary that this will be done on a continuous basis, and that this will continue also when we have no crisis, which means communication and networks between amongst the different states, but also an exchange of different cultures, not only in the Middle East, but also between the Middle East and Europe. For the international community of states, this is possible, but also it is possible to create a policy that will welcome refugees. This means that their messages will have to be heard in the neighboring countries and also in the host countries. And we hope that refugees will be able to seek asylum there in order to be able to live in safety and to conduct a proper life, and that they can enter the territory of these countries. I should like to quote an example from my city. A Syrian refugee wanted to go from Lebanon to Greece. Some of his family members who were in the Lebanon, and to also his sister and neighbors and so on, he was able to borrow $5,000 in order to go to Greece. So it means that he simply flew from Beirut to Turkey. Then he had no other chance but to use the services of smugglers in order to continue along this route. And he paid these $5,000 to the smuggler, but he only came to the border, and he could not enter Greece. He could not enter Greek territory. So when he arrived at the border, then further smugglers arrived, and they wanted more money, and they wanted another $5,000. He did not have any money left, so he could not go on. So after some painful experiences in the woods and in this territory, he was returned to Lebanon. So this is the suffering of a Lebanese, of a Syrian refugee. So a country could say, I can admit 10,000 or 20,000 refugees, or another community could say, well, I can admit 100 refugees, but then it should be possible that these refugees can address themselves to the embassies of their countries in this country, in this host country, so that they can get integrated. So these refugees have already suffered a lot, and in this way we allow them to legally travel into the territories of their host countries. This should be the general policy of all those countries that admit or must admit refugees, or who prepared their willingness to admit refugees. If the other countries do not want to admit refugees, then they should leave this aside. So I have gone to Austria. I should like to thank Austria for this invitation. I should like to thank the organizers of this conference, and I should like to thank all. I should like to thank for this conference. I should like to thank the mayor of Vienna for the patronage over this conference and for the possibility of exchanging our views. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Vielen Dank, Herr Salias.
Thank you, Mr. Salias. The next will be Mr. Erkan RNG, City Council member responsible for the refugee camp in Diyarbakir in Turkey. I should like to ask him to make his statement. I should also like to thank all those who have made a contribution to this conference and who have organized this conference. And I should like to ask them to accept my congratulations, and I should like to welcome all participants. This type of conferences is really necessary. We must not limit such conferences to Vienna. We must not restrict them to Vienna. I am convinced that in other places, such conferences would be important, and these should be international conferences that should be held in other places as well. We have learned a lot in these 2 days, and we had a possibility to exchange our experience. We in Diyarbakir accommodate from the Sinjar area and from Kanishlo, from Kobane, thousands of refugees from these places. And by offering accommodation and refuge to these refugees, unfortunately, the government does not offer any support to them. We depend on our limited funds of the municipality and the commitment of the civil society. So these camps have to be offered to the refugees. And I have learned something, and I saw that the municipal administration in Greece, but also in other European countries, take care of these citizens and have shown a lot of readiness to help. And in granting this help, in giving this support, of course, they have open discussions as to how one should structure this support. And I saw how productive and useful these processes are. So the structuring is very important. None of these refugees voluntarily left their homes. None of them wanted to leave their territories without any good reason, and or only for economic reasons. More than 90% of the refugees flee from war, conflicts. They have to flee in order not to lose their lives and to stay alive. And therefore, we all have the obligation to give them support and assistance. And all states should, of course, also share this responsibility. People should not be forced to entrust their lives to smugglers. The states should jointly agree that quotas should be introduced to distribute refugees, and that on this basis the refugees could come to safe territories and find refuge. Nearly every day we unfortunately have to hear and see in the media that refugees are drowning, that corpses of children are simply found on the coastlines of Europe. Of course, there are reasons for these tragedies, and these are the wars, armed conflicts, and persecution. And I believe a conference could not have a better motivation than analyzing these causes and reasons. And we need a comprehensive conference for analyzing the causes of such flights. States in which democracy is not practiced, how can these states be supported in order to introduce democracy? And we have to focus on these questions. One example of my region, I can report to you that Kurdistan, this region, that in this region we have many provinces and 13 districts in which violent conflicts are taking place, and they are continuing. They've been continued for 50 days. We have a curfew for more than 55 days. We estimate that 250,000 people are forced to leave their homes because of this imposition of the curfew. We, as the city administrators and as NGOs, now are trying people who had to leave their homes. We are trying to prevent that these people will not become refugees. They were forced to leave their homes. And we have a number of aid projects that we work out with together with NGOs in order to help these people and to accommodate them with their family members or to offer them some other accommodation. But the situation is really difficult if these armed conflicts cannot be stopped. And then these 250,000 people who come from 13 different districts and who had to leave their homes, if these armed conflicts will occur in all regions, then there could be 250 million, and all these people may become refugees, and in all probability they would also follow the same route, and they will seek safety here in Europe. We also have some demands to make and expectations. We hope that Europe will also contribute to a settlement of this conflict. Between 2013 and 2015, a peace process had taken place after the elections of June 7th. This peace process and this negotiating table was simply toppled, and unfortunately we are now in the midst of another conflict. We are in a conflict. We're caught in this conflict, and therefore we should all endeavor and make every effort to end this conflict. So these districts that have been destroyed, one of these is Sura in Diyarbakir, and this district belongs to the UNESCO cultural heritage. It looks back on a history of about 7,000 years. This district suffered a great deal, and there were armed conflicts in this district. This historic district has been destroyed. 50% have been destroyed. On the 16th and 17th of January, we organized a workshop in here to discuss our district, what we should do in order to reconstruct the buildings in our district. And this is a situation which really has motivated my statement. This conference is really important for all of us. I'm very happy that I was able to participate in this conference. I'm grateful to have been invited. And the perspective of the refugee movement had been analyzed, and we were able to learn a lot about this. I was very happy to hear more details about this, and I hope that many more conferences will be organized. regarding this topic. Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Mr. Spiros Kallinos, the mayor of Lesbos in Greece. You have the floor, Mr. Spiros. I should like to thank the organizers of this conference, and I should like to thank them for their invitation and for their hospitality. I should like to thank you all, because this gives me an opportunity to raise my voice vis-à-vis the international community. And I want to say that the crime that is going on everywhere, and the Turkish smugglers commit crimes, and this has to be stopped. Just take a look at the life vests here behind me. You see here the word "now" made up of life vests. These life vests save the lives of many people who are looking for a better life here in Europe. Every day that passes, every day on which we are discussing without taking action, is a lost day. Several people lose their lives. Mothers are still alive and they lose their children, and vice versa, and many other people lose their lives. And what I say, and this is why I've come here, is the following. We have to take action. We have to take action now. We have to find a political line, a political effort has to be made, and this crime must be stopped, and therefore we don't need any politics. This is an obligation we all of us have, and I say to the international community and to all governments, I address myself to all governments of all countries: if you watch a crime without stopping it, then you are an accomplice. And we are in this state, we are accomplices of this crime, and this crime must be stopped. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Luigi Amatuna, the mayor of Pozzallo in Italy. I should like to give the floor to him. Hello to everybody. Thank you for the invitation. This is a fantastic opportunity, and we enjoyed a fantastic hospitality. And there is a saying, namely that the South European are very hospitable, and in the North this is different. But this is not true. We were really generously welcomed and with a great deal of warmth and openness. So I should like to thank Austria and Austrians for this really great hospitality. And I should like to also thank you for giving us the opportunity to exchange our views and experiences. So many mayors have been invited. Many mayors are endeavoring to help all our brothers and sisters who are forced to flee from hunger and persecution and war. So it is wonderful that they admit all these refugees. It's valuable that we can exchange our experience. What we have experienced is a rich treasure for that we can take home to our countries. And we also become aware of one thing, and we have become very aware. We know that we play a very important role. We can play such an important role as mayors of European countries, because those who are higher up in the hierarchy do not realize what is happening every day. There are tragedies in this context. They don't even realize these tragedies and the drama, and sometimes they do not take decisions or adequate decisions. So to hear from the grassroots, the representatives of the citizens in the different locations would definitely make a very good contribution to finding much more adequate solutions at the high echelons of power. Our brothers and sisters, irrespective of their religion, faith, color, and cultural background, are our brothers and sisters. Giorgio Lapira, a royal citizen who was born in Pozzallo and for many years lived in Florence, once said that the Mediterranean is comparable to the Lake of Tiberias, where the three monotheistic faiths coexist really peacefully. And here around the Mediterranean, it will be very important that all people can coexist in peace. And there are some who argue that these people should not be welcomed with open arms. But yesterday during the panel, I said two things which I should like to repeat briefly. Why do we admit all these people? Why do we receive them? Why can't we say no when we face them, when we see them, when they are stranded on our beaches, and when they arrive at our ports, and when they want to leave their boats? They are soaked, they are freezing, or they are burnt by the sun. There are women with children, there are pregnant women, and many unaccompanied minors. How can we be in our port on the quay and say, you are not allowed to come to our country? You have to go back to your country of origin. Another statement I made yesterday: if there are parents who send their children to put them, a 10-year-old child, into an inflated boat, knowing that maybe this child will not even arrive on the other side of the sea because the boat could be capsized, or if the child is lucky and arrives on the other side, then these parents hope that the life will be much better, but will never see their parents again. What is the motivation for parents to set such a child into a boat? So we must realize that this child only can find a future somewhere else. If the parents did not have the hope that the child could lead a better life, then they would not put their children in these boats. So we have the moral obligation to support these children, to admit them, because they are citizens of the world. And it is not true that those who live in Austria do not have the possibility to find accommodation or to go to Iran, to Germany, or in Syria. Anyone could select any domicile anywhere, and this applies to everybody. Another appeal I would like to make to the UN: please interfere so that these wars can be put to an end, but not with weapons, only with diplomacy. Try to end this war finally and invest in those countries where we need jobs, where we need development, in order to enable these people not being forced to flee to other countries in order to lead a better life. In the meantime, I believe that it would be a good approach, and it would be right to create places where these people can be admitted, where they can be accommodated, where they can be helped and supported, where they can be rescued from the smugglers, that they can arrive in Europe without involving smugglers and without any threats or dangers. So they would not need to use these very dangerous boats, and we could save many lives.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much. And well, the final mayor here on the panel is Andreas Pabler, the mayor of Treskirchen in Austria. Thank you very much. Well, when this event was put together and been reorganized, we felt that there is a major longing, that there is a need to become active now and to adopt a new approach, a new perspective, and to do so together. So we who are affected by that in the region and those countries and municipalities along the route to Europe. And this conference is so unique and so outstanding, and this has been confirmed in all discussions we have led, because there are real-life players here, we as mayors and NGOs here, who deal on a daily basis with the realities of life, or with the people who have fled their home countries, who stay here temporarily or intend to settle here. And we deal with special issues, very concrete issues, be it infrastructure, technical infrastructure, whether it be social activities, whether there are inconsistencies, we all know, between local residents and people who join in this society based on envy, which has often been quoted. So, well, lines that are artificially introduced. But we as mayors have a major responsibility, and this is what we feel, because this is important also for the climate in our cities. And well, we also send out signals by the way in which we address this issue. And our joint call, well, in Austria, there is definitely the largest camp where we still host 1,500 people, and then you mustn't forget these huge dimensions. The mayors, where there are camps, 80,000, 90,000 people, and these are dimensions. For instance, where the whole of Austria say, well, we cannot cope with that, but these are things and challenges these mayors here have to face on a daily basis. And we in Austria say that we cannot cope with that. Well, we have joint interests, and we articulated that, and summarizing that is, please do not leave us alone. And this is the call we made. And our previous speakers also said this is the call we made to the national authorities, to the international authorities, to collaborate with us on a daily basis. Development assistance does not arrive where it is supposed to be arrived. We often feel left at our own devices, and our colleagues here, the prerequisites are even more difficult than the ones we have to face, and sometimes the money doesn't arrive where it is supposed to. And this is the call we hear also in Europe. Please do not leave us alone. And well, my previous speakers illustrated the very dramatic situation, and what does it mean to give people a face, to think about what makes parents send their children in an inflatable boat across the sea. And this is important. Well, you must not forget there have been the discussions at European level, and when we put together this event, we actually did not know that this event will take place at a time when in Europe, in many governments, well, they try to fend off immigrants, and also at the domestic policy levels, the relevant proposals have been made. So further obstacles are to be raised to people who seek protection. And my previous speakers know much more about the root causes for flight. But statements made, or laws, for instance, or I consider it unsupportable when leading politicians says that although it is not possible under our constitutions, we will nevertheless close down the borders, and you cannot deal with these people whose, well, last resort is going to Austria. And these approaches will definitely not stop these migration and migratory movements, because the only thing will be that everything will be more dangerous, and the people will have to rely on people smugglers. These people have no perspective in their own countries, and what we require is, in the immediate term, first of all, assist immediately, use money instead of discussing how to fend off immigrants. We need to focus on what we could do in order to help these people in the large refugee camps. So, for instance, we must involve international and local players who have to manage the situation on the ground. We need to invest in that and help them. And in my introductory statement yesterday, I said I have to really think in depth on how to return to what is and deserves the name of development cooperation, how global trade can be based on a democratic principles, on a principle based on solidarity. And this has also to interfere with, or has an impact on real politics. Many of the colleagues also said that, well, based on our perspective, based on our experience and reality in Europe, well, we do not become active at political level in the region. Historically speaking, we actually hold responsibility for the current developments. We must not forget the structural exploitation in these areas. We hold responsibility for that. But when it is about becoming active politically in this region, we leave that over to others, or we seek alliance partners which have very doubtful strategies they pursue. And this is the political dimension of the experience we have. We must all remember again, how do concrete best practice examples look like? Many have been presented, small best practice examples developed by NGOs, civil society, creative ideas, and well, the heading of this conference, apart from the major problem I discussed, the underlying idea is to meet each other, to express appreciation for each other and for the difficult situations we have successfully tackled, without forgetting that we hold human responsibility, direct human responsibility in exercising our official office. We also used this convention to exchange knowledge. And what inspires us with hope is that we share a view that we believe that this conference now must not be the last of such conference under this heading of what we have together. We will continue by putting together a follow-up process. We will definitely not give up such a forum. It is unique. This is the first such event I had the pleasure of participating. I thank everybody. But I would also like to thank all those who have organized and worked in the background, be it from distributing cards and so on. So thank you for all those helpers in the background who have created this nice and respectful climate here. Thank you very much.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much. And now we started a bit later, and we have also taken a bit longer defined in the agenda. So I was asked, to come to an end in a few minutes. Well, the conference continues here until the afternoon hours. There are opportunities for face-to-face discussions and interviews, but nevertheless, we have time for some questions. The gentleman here, please be so kind and use your microphone. Otherwise, the interpreters cannot hear you. Please be brief, a concise question, and name the person you address the question to. Probably a more extensive answer and question can take place afterward. Ralf Leonhardt from Taz Berlin. Well, currently there are lively discussions on the establishments on hotspots in the neighboring countries of Syria. I'm interested from the perspective of those countries, the representatives of those countries, how realistic is the installation of such hotspots, and is this an opportunity to redistribute via these associations people in the neighboring countries?
أنا رأيي إنه اللاجئ
I believe that a Syrian refugee who embarked into a road where he doesn't know how his future will look like, but they go to Europe to lead a better life. This is a target, a bit more prosperity. And when this refugee is in the neighboring countries of Syria, then he or she is under massive economic pressure. And therefore they want to go somewhere else because they believe that life in Europe is different, better. And this is why I believe the European countries should pursue a policy which informs the Syrian refugees whether they are ready and willing to admit the refugee, so that this refugee does not spend a lot of money, doesn't undergo a lot of suffering, and then arrives at the border of Europe and is sent back. So we spare them this experience. We need to define clear policies, clear visions by the European Union on how to deal with refugees, whether you want to admit and welcome them or not. And in this conference, we discussed the human approach, humanity. We spoke about people's dignity. And it is very important to respect human dignity. It is very important to respect the dignity of a Syrian refugee. We require an objective and clear plan in order to respect and preserve refugees' dignity.
Merhaba, benim adım Harun Öztürkler. Türkiye'den katılıyorum. 3 tane şey söyleyeceğim. Birincisi...
Hello, I'm Harun Masukari. I'm from Turkey, and I want to comment on 3 things. Turkey has admitted roughly 3 million refugees from Syria and supports them. As mentioned yesterday, the volume is $8 billion in terms of money. And when you say that we supported refugees in Turkey, then it is not appropriate for others to say so. Secondly, in Turkey, there are no ethnically subdivided regions. There is one state, and this is Turkey, and this is a unity state, and we all have to be aware of that. And thirdly, let me make the following statements. We must not forget that we talk about 10 million internally displaced persons. And we are here to speak about the problems of the 15 million refugees, but we are not here to discuss a fictitious possible flight movement, and considering the topic to be addressed today is not appropriate. Well, this is more a statement than a question. Okay, then they should discuss the next question. There was one or not? If not, if this is not the case, then yeah, we have more or less reached the limit of the time allotted, so probably we could continue discussions in face-to-face interviews. Okay, good. A brief question, but no statement, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Could you quote 1 or 2 examples for follow-up projects so that this does not remain a self-help group for mayors? Patricia Viola, could you name a few perspectives? Had something changed over the last 2 days? Well, thank you very much. Who wants to answer? Well, a self-help group for mayors is something I consider a strange term. This is not what we have done. This is not what we have prepared here. And in my introductory statement, I briefly touched on that. I said it is a first step. We will stay in touch. And because of the information we collected, because of the experience and best practice examples, we will, follow up. And together with many of the mayors who have participated in the event, we will develop new ideas and projects that are to serve as an example for, well, let's call them politics. The colleague from Italy said yesterday, Rome is far and Brussels is even further away, and politics is very far away from people's real life, and we believe that it is high time that the focus is on people, the focus of interest is on people. Well, in concrete terms, I cannot give you a precise answer. Lots of things are currently being developed, but within the next 4 weeks, 2 very specific projects will be implemented. Would you like to comment on that? Yeah, we just want to mention that we are working on a final statement, on a declaration in writing. This is currently being put together, and this will also be published. Thank you very much. Since time is fleeing, we have to stop now. Thank you very much. Bye.